Good afternoon. Welcome to this iCEBreak session. I have the pleasure to introduce António Vicente. He is an associate professional with habilitation at the Biological Engineering Department at UMinho. He is also the coordinator of the Food Innovation and Technology Group at SEB. He has won the Scientific Merit Award from University of Minho this year, and for the third consecutive year, he was one of the highly cited researchers from Clarivate. So it is with great pleasure that I have the pleasure to introduce António Vicente to make this presentation about the future of foods. And without delaying more, I give the stage to you.
Well, thank you very much, Luis, and also thank you to SEB for this opportunity to share a little bit of our thoughts on what could be the future of food and the foods for the future, which is actually the theme or the title of my talk today. Well, once again, congratulations for this initiative. It is, I know it's a trouble for those who are involved in it, but it's also, I'm sure, a pleasure, because it is very important that we all know what's going on around our quite big community. And this is actually a very important part of the scientific development of the center. So thank you very much once again for that. Now, I'm trying to take you out of my sight so that I can the little pictures here, but yeah, everything is working. So the future of food, foods for the future. My question is actually divided in, if you wish, two big problems. The first one is right here. We need to ensure that people will have sufficient food, will be at the same time healthy, and will be feeling good. And this is becoming a bit more difficult if the prevalence of obesity is still going up everywhere in the world, as you can easily see in this graph. So we have really a very complicated situation in which many people are really overweight and many others are still lacking the basics. This is not to the food industry or to the food specialists to solve, but of course we can, it's a political reason mostly, but at least we can give the politicians the tools to do that. And I could let you know about what the future food needs to do. And it needs basically to tackle malnutrition. And by malnutrition here, I'm not only talking about those people eating less than they should. I'm talking about people eating what they should not eat in the wrong amounts. Eventually reduce calorie density in foods. So foods which you can eat, but they are not going to give you as much calories as they could. Reduce food digestibility. It's another way of getting the weight down without people having to compromise too much the intake of food. On the other hand, on the other side, increase micronutrient bioavailability, eventually controlling gut health, which is also a very important issue in this nutrition aspects. And then two main buzzwords or buzz expressions, which are nowadays being on the stage. One is personalized nutrition. Imagine a future food where you can say, okay, my doctor told me to eat this and this and that and that and that, so compose me a food that will be nice for me to eat, which is proper just for me. And the other one is programming foods which are good and appropriate for the elderly people with all the problems they have associated, like lack of taste or diminishing the taste sensations, problems with, of course, mastication, with swallowing, etc., etc., etc. So these are really buzzwords today. Then some steps have been given many years ago and still are, and a few of them I can just show you. For instance, how to reduce the amount of fat in mayonnaise, and it has been very elegantly solved by putting some droplets of air in or of a water phase inside the droplets of fat in the mayonnaise structure, or have margarines with reduced fat content as well, using a similar scheme, but with a different structure. But still, again, the idea is increasing the amount of water, decreasing the amount of fat over there. But stabilizing this has been a problem. And so people have been working on this for, well, quite many years, and there are products on the market. Then other issue is, okay, if we could at least take the fat or the starch or those high density or high density energy foods components out and replace them by something which is not as energy intensive, it would work great. And that has also been done. You can have indigestible fat droplets because they were made indigestible because they were covered with a sort of I don't want to say cover again, but a structure that prevents lipases from going there and eating the lipids and destructuring these. Protein microparticles, which help conferring a different texture to the foods. Microgels, biopolymer microgels, where fat is there, but in a much lesser amount, gums, etc., etc., etc. Also, delivery systems to increase the availability of micronutrients, which was one of the objectives up there. And then you have a range of them, either emulsions where you have a liquid core, suspensions where you have a solid core, liposomes, etc., etc., etc. So all these structures are nowadays available to the food technologists and food engineers to produce foods with the same texture and the same palatability, but with less amounts of ingredients which are thought to be harmful for the health. But then we have the second problem, which is the health of our planet itself. We all heard about the issues regarding the fact that cows being raised, animals in general, are increasing the footprint, carbon footprint, etc. And this is also a problem in terms of health because they are related or have been related with less good health issues. And we need to take care of that as well. Which are the tools? Well, we can rely on molecular biology. We can rely on nanotechnology. We can even rely on artificial intelligence, robots and sensors to make the production more effective. We can rely on what is called, it was very nice when I was searching for this lecture, they call it cellular agriculture, which is the culture of, for instance, cells, vegetable cells, for instance, to make one of those hamburgers that you've heard about, structured hamburgers made out of cellular cultures. But this is called cellular agriculture. And also very, very on stage now, alternative protein sources, mostly vegetable alternatives to animal protein. So all of these can be used, and we have all these tools at our disposal. Now, we as consumers of today, which are the food top trends, mostly heading to a good health label? Well, we have the clean claims, so preservatives free. Clean labels, which is when you look at the label at the supermarket, you don't see the E numbers. You possibly prefer to read lemon juice instead of E330, which is citric acid. It's basically the same thing for us chemistry people, but people prefer to read one instead of the other. What we call the lifestyle enhancers, high energetic foods, functional foods, everyone has heard about this, minimally processed foods linked with the natural ingredients, green foods, so the benefits of plants, for instance, as I told before, the replacement of animal protein by other protein sources. All of these are rated as the top food trends in the last 2, 3, 4 years, okay? So we have this complex system to work with, and actually the main answer so far has been, well, novelties in terms of food processing, that will allow us to reach at least partially those objectives. And we are talking about new technologies, sustainability, of course, and innovation in the food industry, research and development a lot, and all this has contributed to try solving those issues. And both of them were powered, if you wish, by two main facts. The consumer demand, because we are, as a consumers, we've just seen it, more and more demanding on our foods, and also the economical opportunity. No company, we must be conscious of this, no company will have or pick up some very fantastic idea if it does not have an economical benefit for the company. And it should be clear for them. So when we are doing research, we can, of course, do our things, but at the end of the day, what is important is really if this will be economically successful, otherwise they won't do it. It's more than clear for me since some years ago already. But okay, what are we doing at CEB, which is being a contribution for this or trying to solve these problems that I've shown you before? And so what I'm going to show you now is, in the next 9 minutes, it's basically which are the main research efforts that we were doing, not only in our group. I wrote at CEB because this has a multitude of contributions, as you will see, and possibly you will recognize some of them. But those are what I would sum up as being the main contributions that we were giving to those problems I've shown you before. I must start by this. As you know, we have been working with electrical technologies, so moderate electric fields. MEF stands for moderate electric fields, so ohmic heating, as you may have heard as well. Eventually pulsed electric fields. So this emerging, so-called emerging food processing technology based on electric fields has been our mainframe for the last 20 years, I would say. And this is a bit of a time scheme of our contributions. So we started early on 2000 by seeing what happens with enzymes and microbial inactivation when the electrical field is applied, and we managed to show that there is a very significant influence of the electric field on the activity of enzymes and on microbial inactivation on top of the temperature. That network has kept. We then switched to apply this to milk and cheese, dairy products, then to edible films. Then we could show that besides the temperature, also the electricity does something, and without the temperature, the electricity can do something actually. So we proved the non-thermal inactivation for the first time ever. Then we started working with some of the components of the foods, and whey proteins in particular. They have been our workhorse since then. And we were a bit exploring the effects of the electricity, high frequency, for instance, higher or lower voltages applied, and how we could use that to functionalize, so to change the function of milk proteins, whey proteins, lactoferrin, and caseinate. Then we started applying this technology also to the extraction of bioactive compounds, and finally on using the milk protein functionalization, trying to get structures out of that. So that's a bit of what I'm going to show you now in a few images. These are the main three areas where we've been working: food preservation and quality, with pasteurization, sterilization, non-thermal inactivation, eventually developing edible packaging systems, protein science and technology, trying to see what's going on with protein structure and interactions, development of micro and nano systems with proteins, and eventually protein gelation. And finally, some biotechnological applications, as I told you before, extraction of added value compounds, tissue engineering also, and eventually combining the technology with new solvent systems. Well, this is just to show you that we were able to burst cells, which are liberating here. This is a vegetable cell, liberating its contents. We managed the same, bursting E. coli cells, and we did this at room temperature. And you can see here more closely, as soon as you increase the amount of the electric field strength, you really increase the death kinetics of the cells, so we can actually sterilize something contaminated by E. coli using this treatment without the temperature effect. So this was done at 30, 35 degrees. So if not for anything else, E. coli would be happily growing there. Then we also know that we can change the protein aggregate size when processing with ohmic heating or with electric fields. This is the conventional heating, mean particle size increase with heating time, and the same for electric heating time. What does happen here? I'll show you in a minute, but this turns into different gels viscosity, different morphology, also slower denaturation kinetics, lower concentration of free sulfhydryls, which means that we are affecting the structure of the protein differently. All of this this is an example of denaturation, for instance. You see here the conventional heating denaturation kinetics and ohmic heating denaturation kinetics in yellow. And there's really a change, okay? We've done lots of analysis. Actually, we have shown that ohmic heating samples were being processed somehow differently, and we were very puzzled. What's going on here? We managed to see that the differences could be evaluated at the secondary structure level. So we did some circular dichroism, and we could see that beta sheets, alpha helixes were being affected differently when we had or not electrical currents. How can we use this? Well, we can use this to gel proteins at lower temperatures, to incorporate iron there, have, for instance, a very interesting nano hydrogel that I'm going to show you in a minute. And finally, we thought maybe this also affects the immune response of proteins. So we can make or try making the protein allergenicity change by this type of changes. And actually, the electric field processing could or can affect actually the gastrointestinal digestion behavior of the proteins and their allergenic responses. Very quickly, see the immunoreactivity of, for instance, beta-lactoglobulin when we have it conventionally processed, the last column, and processed at 4 volts per centimeter. So this threshold is not passed when we electrically process, but it's really passed on when it is conventionally processed. So this was done for bovine beta-lactoglobulin, but also in soy proteins, we could see that the trypsin soy inhibitor immunoreactivity was much lower when we were using the electric fields. Finally, what about nanotechnology? Well, we can have new food structures, increased bioavailability, new textures, etc., etc. But this offers two things. One, novel tools, but also questions about the behavior of the nanostructures in the human body. So we could or we should take care of both. And in respect of structures, we were able to make all of this. So active and smart packaging, nanofilms, nanocoatings, nanoemulsions, nanocapsules, nanohydrogels, and all of them developed here at CEB. This is an example of the nanocoatings that we have developed. This is their effect on mangoes. After 45 days, you can really notice a difference in terms of preservation. We also use the electrical fields to change the way proteins aggregate. And by this, we were able to produce a nanohydrogel which incorporates iron chloride, which is very important because it's a very difficult process to have iron stabilized on a food. And this was for the first time possible. And this is a patent actually that we hold. We also use this idea of having a nano emulsion protected eventually by nano layers of our polymers. Why? Because in the gastrointestinal tract, you all know this, our gastrointestinal dynamic system, which is here in the picture. We managed to see that by using a protective layer on the nanoemulsions, we could modulate where the delivery of, in this case, curcumin could be done in the intestinal part, so in the jejunum, in the ileum, or actually in the stomach, and the bioavailability was changing depending on whether the coating was there or not. So modulation of the liberation of a bioactive compound. Also, we could protect nanohydrogels from stomach action. Here is without the nanohydrogel. You can see both proteins going down in 20 minutes. With the nanohydrogel, the proteins were, yes, they were in the stomach, intact, or much more intact, and only digested after 80 minutes. So it means that they would go on their path to the intestine. And of course, this is also important, absorption. Finally, we are looking for new sources of proteins and bioactives, and we have this work with algae, with companies. We use our electrical fields again to help extracting things from here. You can just have an idea of what's going on with electrical fields, the red ones, when we try to extract some compounds from the grape skins. And finally, I would like to finish by letting you know that many opportunities in this field, yes. New opportunities appear every day, yes, but very, very important. And this is a message I would like to leave to all of you. We need an interdisciplinary approach more and more to take care of these issues. So we need chemical, biological engineers, biochemists, biophysics, bioinformatics, medicine, nutrition, you name it. And this is absolutely crucial if we need to look for success in this exciting field. Thank you very much. Leave you with a picture of when we could walk around easily. More than two, maybe 5 years ago already. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for the 2 minutes delay.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. We'll now move directly to the questions. Just let me share this. Okay, one of the first questions is, do you think that the way that we eat today will be different in the next upcoming years?
I'm rather positive about that. Yes, I think so. Not only the foods will be different, but also our way of thinking will also be different. And we noticed that already. Many people are becoming vegetarian, or at least they are reducing the amounts of the meat they eat and increasing the amount of vegetables and protein from vegetable origin. This is really a trend. And I'm very, very positive about that, yes.
Okay. And regarding the first question, this is a consequence of the first question. So do you think that the introduction of insects in our food would be something inevitable?
I don't think it is inevitable, but I think it will happen. So I will use my personal view. I really don't find it very interesting to have insects for my breakfast, but I've tried and it's actually okay. So I think it's a matter of, again, a matter of culture, and it will change, but it will take more time than the previous change I was talking about.
Okay. I have just one question before the next one, because it's a consequence of also these two questions. You are talking more about an European thing, or do you think that your opinions are something that would be worldwide?
Oh, clearly worldwide. Okay. The only issue is that different, as in many other, I would say, in the other, all of the other areas of development in the world, different world regions will do them at different paces. That's for sure. If you go to Asia, they already eat insects. If you go to the United States, those food trends are, many of them are from the United States and Europe together, also in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia and stuff, but they are getting more and more to the Eastern Asia, and also in the South American territories. So it will happen, but at different paces for sure.
Okay. Two more questions. Do you think that the industry is more prone to accept these novel technologies in their processes if this is economical feasible, or the food industry is still conservative?
Both. As I said, if economically feasible, and if we can show them that it is economically feasible, companies are, at least the ones which are more advanced in terms of, not in terms of processes, the ones which are more advanced in terms of management thinking, they will be willing to test them. I'm sure about it. Well, they are already. The problem is that many other food industries are still very conservative in their management, and we just need to wait until the management changes or dies or whatever, because that's the only way. If the managing people will not accept this, there's no way they can do it.
Okay. Are you willing to do anything to convince them?
Well, we have done that. We kept on doing that, and we hope we can keep on doing that for the times to come. That's why I'm saying it's not difficult, but it's possible. We managed to introduce a few things in the industry, even in Portugal, which is really relevant. But I also know that some things that we have contributed to are being implemented elsewhere. So someone else has taken it. But that's life.
Yeah. So last question, how the electrical processing is affecting the food?
As I said, in many different ways, none of them negative, I would say. So the electrical processing, one thing people usually ask me, is that allowed? Yes, it is. That's not an issue. So there's no production of a weird thing that will kill us all. The issue is that it may affect, as I showed with proteins, it may affect some molecules, the way they react with each other. And by that, we have a very interesting opportunity to modulate food properties. And that's what we are really interested in at the moment.
Okay. Thank you very much for your complete answers. And thanks again for your participation in this event. It was very enriched by your talk. So
thank you so
name
much.
of the organization, we want to thank you. And we also want to say that next week we'll have the iCEBreak PhD seminars presented by Ricardo Carvalho, and we hope to see you there, and wish you a continuation of a nice week. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.